let's talk about attributes 6, 7, and 8, running, reading, and reporting. Quick recap. We know that we use software to run our tests, right? So we'll learn how to run these tests. You're going to have to run these tests. It's not just a matter of knowing them. So this megatable that we're looking at is the SPSS version of the megatable, and it's going to be featuring this running, right? So this is going to show you on the menu how to run these tests and what you should click and all of those things. You're going to have different versions of the megatable for different types of software that you might encounter. But the theory is always the same, and the output is going to look roughly like something like this, okay? Always, every time. And we're going to learn how to run these tests later, so no need to worry about that now. Now let's talk about reading and reporting. After we ran a test, we get an output that we must report. Every software has a slightly different output. Here in the megatable, you can see the outputs under this reading column. And it's roughly going to look the same for every statistical software with slight variations here and there. Now, talking specifically about reporting. In this course, we're using APA standards for reporting. So it's like an organization that created this standard format for reporting your statistical results. These standards change in different schools. Could be them using different standards, like there's a Chicago standard, there's many different standards. Check which one your school is using just before you move on, and you can find the adequate reporting for your school. Reports can be confusing, but we have it color-coded. For example, where do I find this number, mean and standard deviation, whenever I'm reporting this text according to this structure? You look at the color. This is orange, so this goes here, right? Same thing for the p-value. How do I find the p-value? Where's the p-value? Well, it's here, under sig, right? So that's where we're finding that. We can use these colors all throughout the megatable to see, okay, where did I find this number? This number, I found it from here. And that's it. That's very, very useful. One important thing is that when you look at these outputs, it's going to look like it's a bunch of text, and you don't really know what you're doing. But again, this is a fake it till you make it process. So use the color codes just to sort of mechanically do it initially, and it's not going to make a lot of sense, but as you practice, things are going to start to fall into place. Deep breath. Now, let's talk about how to APA. So first thing we're going to be talking about is structure. So in the structure, it's going to follow roughly the structure of things you have to mention when you're reporting your test. By the way, this is all structured in the megatable already, so you can just go and use that one. I'm just going to show you if you have to remember this for a stupid exam. Usually, we're going to be talking about the test. So we mentioned an independent simple t-test was conducted. You mentioned the variables, like we're mentioning them here. Gender has an effect on extroversion in the population. Is it significant? You're going to mention if it's significant or not. What are the relevant numbers? So there's a bunch of relevant numbers that you're going to have to memorize, and the megatable really helps you remember all of that. Interpretation. So interpretation, you're just going to be talking about the effect size. Is this a strong effect size? Is this a weak effect size? We're going to be looking at that when we talk about strength in the next class. Finally, we have to conclude whether or not the null hypothesis is rejected or retained, and that's sort of the end. So that's structure. Now, I'm also going to be talking about formatting, especially about these intricacies of the APA format. So there's a couple of things you need to do. First of all, you need to report all the statistics in italics. So you can see that the M, SD, M, P, D, T, SD, all of these things are italicized. Just the letters, not the equal sign and not the number. And there's like a space after the M and a space after the equal sign, just so you know. Everything's italicized except for these Greek letters. I don't have any Greek letters here, but if you have any statistics that are represented in Greek letters, you don't italicize them. And this 95% CI, we actually leave it as is. We never report P equals 0.000. Instead, we always see the P is smaller than 0.001. If you've watched the literally every test class, you might have an idea why we never see the P is 0, because it tends to infinity, so it never actually reaches 0, so you can never say that it's equal to 0. We just say that it's very, very small, smaller than 0.001. So it could be that you find an output on SPSS or whatever software that you're using saying the P is equal to 000. But where you're going to report an APA is always that it's smaller than 0.001. Report all values with 2 decimals, except for p-values, which use 3 decimals, and percentages, which will use 1 decimal. So here we have p-values, which we're reporting with 3 decimals. All the other values we're reporting with 2 decimals. When it's an integer, like degrees of freedom or number of participants, we just report it as is, so 81 participants. There's no reason why we would have 81.5 participants. That's why we do it that way. And if you have percentages, you only use 1 decimal. So let's say you'd say 24.5%. And if you wonder why the percentage is only 1 digit, it's because we're usually multiplying a 3 decimal number by 100. You don't have to know this, but it's just an interesting thing to know. Next thing, calculate with 3 decimals. Some statistics you're going to have to calculate by yourself. So for example, D is a statistic they have to calculate by yourself using 2 other numbers. And when you do that, make sure you calculate with 3 digits. Now let's say you got an output of D equals 0.105. What do you do in this situation? Because you have to report this in 2 decimals. Well, then you round it up, right? So if it's 5, you round it up. So this number would be rounded up to D equals 0.11. Finally, we're going to omit the integer 0 for numbers that can't be higher than 1. Now look at this. You might ask me, what do you mean by omitting the integer 0? What I mean is that you're never going to write P like this, okay? You're never going to write P like this. You're only going to write P with the 0.004. That's it. And these are the final formatting rules if you want to keep track of them for later. Gratitude breath. That's it. I'll see you next time.